battling the traffic and giving up a night to come out here and learn about how to engage with your Texas legislature. So the word lobbying, lobbyist has been tossed around a lot. I'm a citizen lobbyist, not a paid corporate lobbyist. So, but I do not have to register as a lobbyist. In Texas, you do not have to register as a lobbyist unless you spend a certain amount of money per calendar quarter on certain activities, such as taking your legislator out to dinner, buying your legislator gifts, paying for him to attend a certain event, or entertaining legislators. So if you're running an organization, you might, and you're having events with them, you might go over the amount. It's like $970 per quarter, I think it is, or yeah, $970. But if you do like I do, I spend a lot of money, but it's on my own travel, on my own, feeding myself, for my hotel bills, for literature to share with the legislator, so printing costs, and for when I have events like like maybe a rally or a protest, I have printing costs. Then sometimes I hire a billboard truck. I've had a billboards go up all over Texas and the big cities for some legislation I was supporting. So those are some of the ways I spent money that I was able to do that without having to file as a paid, definitely not a paid lobbyist, because I spend my own money. But you don't have to register and keep reporting. So what we're talking about tonight, mostly, what I'll be trying to get you equipped to do yourself, is citizen lobbying, where you wouldn't have to register. And they used to say, and I'm not sure if it's still true, but it was like the most effective form of lobbying, because people in your community, if I'm the legislator in Bel Air and you're coming, all the way to Austin to tell me about your, concern for certain legislation that you want to see passed or you don't want to see passed. I'm keeping a tally, or my office is, of how many people come to talk about the water issue, the issues with the crime, or in the city or whatever. So they're like, hey, there's a bill that addresses such and such, and a lot of people have come from our district. So that's why it matters to them. They do know if people from their district are coming or not. If they're not, they're less likely to care about that unless some big donor is making them care. So we'll talk a little bit about the professional influence of lobbying in the Texas legislature. Any day you go to the Texas legislature, you're going to probably recognize some of the paid lobbyists. Right off, if you see the people look like they're with the mafia, those are going to be your casino industry, the gambling industry guys. I mean, they're they're very organized, very slick. You definitely recognize them in their expensive suit. David Weekley, I don't recognize their people right off, but you do see their impression when you follow what passes and you see who they donate to. I'll talk a little bit about them in a minute. But you'll also see people in white coats. So that's your healthcare professionals, health insurance professionals coming. You'll see a big day of lobbying for real estate. I mean, I wish that as many of us showed up as realtors do on Realtor Day. I mean, we really need to have citizens end property taxes day, because how long have they been talking about that, and they can't get anything done, and they're pointing the fingers, at the House, is the Senate, and like this has been a campaign issue for our governor for, I think, I forget how many years, but a lot of years. So, this needs to be addressed. Like, let's all show up. Let's all wear the same color shirt. But anyway, we can get them printed for really cheap. So that's the kind of thing I do. There's $300 million in reported lobbying expenditures per session. That's about $1 million per legislator. So your voice is being diluted by those dollars. Talk about taxation and representation. Well, they're buying your representation away in the Texas legislature. So it's being sold to the highest bidder. About a $111 million is taxpayer funded lobbying that takes place. Yep, $111 million per session. Yep. So lobbyists are only required to itemize and disclose expenditures over 60% of the daily legislative per diem, which is $132 per day. So in addition to what a legislator is paid for the year, they also have $132 per diem a day, which helps them with incidental expenses, their lunches, a dinner. So if you do go to Austin, do not buy them dinner. Let them buy you dinner. They're racking up the per diems. They can definitely take you to dinner and listen to you on your concern. All right, so, and there's some really good restaurants close to the Capitol. So, so the top 5 lobbying industries in Texas. Think about how these industries affect all aspects of your life, especially your cost of living. And your quality of life in Texas. Energy and utilities, and they primarily focus on tax incentives, grid reforms. I think we need that, but environmental and drilling regulations. So they may be they're saying they're not for certain grid reforms, and we definitely need some grid reforms and have for a while. So they may be against regulations on their industry. Healthcare, they're there to secure state Medicaid funding, to control Medicare, medical licensing standards, manage regulations on pharmaceuticals, and Texas Medical Association and Texas Hospital Association are the 2 top spenders in that category. And by the way, Texas Medical Association definitely supported transing kids, doing the procedures on kids. So for years, I think they only this year changed their mind. Insurance and financial services is another big one. Their focus is tort reform, and in that regard, so TLR is a big one that represents that whole umbrella of different organizations or different types of businesses, realtors, construction, trucking industry, and insurance. So what they want to do is have tort reform to limit, put caps on what you can be awarded for damages and for like pain and suffering. And they've also passed legislation to limit what evidence can be brought into court in certain phases. So it's divided into like their guilt and then how much they'll have to pay you. And you're not allowed to bring in things like they have a long track history of safety violations or hiring people who had a long history of violations or even driving under the influence or something. So those are some bills that they passed, and that was a TLR supported bill. I think that passed in 2021, maybe. I wrote about it on my madmamabear.com blog. You can, if you Google madmamabear.com with TLR, MOMMA, Mama, madmamabear.com. If you Google that with TLR in the search, you'll find the articles I wrote on TLR and kind of their influence. And what interested me in that was that, they're getting things passed while we were trying to get, the reason I really focused on it one year when I did was because I'm seeing they're getting things passed that hurt Texans. And we're having a hard time to get a bill passed. Back at that time, we still haven't passed a bill like this that said pediatric gender modification procedures are child abuse. That's the bill we tried to get passed like 2019, 2021, 2023. We have not been able to pass that. Have we stopped the procedures? Yes. Sort of. There's still loopholes in that. But that's the bill we tried to get passed because it seems obvious that it is child abuse to sterilize a child and or remove their breast or remove a young man's testicles. Those procedures are all documented as being done in Texas for many, many years. It's not a secret. And when those couldn't be passed and whenever I found TLR supported the vaccine mandates for employers could say, well, you can't work here if you don't get these vaccines. I thought, wow, who is this organization and how are they, getting all their stuff passed? Like it's just flying through. And our bills are like, oh, sorry, it died in calendars or It didn't get out of committee. So that's what got my attention. So the tort reform is a big one. TLR, by the way, the reason they get so much clout with Republicans, aside from the fact that they donate across the, bipartisan donations, big donations to people on any committee that's going to see their bill. So into the tops of those committees and to the Speaker of the House. That's where big donations go. So that's how they donate to Democrats too. But some of the other key players are, besides insurance companies, also private equity firms. Private equity is in our education, it is in our healthcare now. So they're a big player in the Texas Capitol as well. And then real estate and construction, they're focusing on tax abatements, infrastructure spending to benefit their industry, sometimes our communities, zoning restrictions that usually to benefit them, not the communities around them, and pushing back against local regulation. So most of the time we want local regulation, except for when we don't want it because, like we have, problems with our local communities. So. And then technology and communication. So all this AI stuff, that's a big one in that department. So those are the 5 biggest. And up in the very top, but they're not in the top 5, are the casinos and gaming industries. They're big players in the Texas Capitol, especially when we have a bill that's going to be considered. And so we're going to have those again this year. And that's why you're going to see a lot of money being spent by, I think her name, Miriam Adelson. So, a little bit of education here, a little bit from Schoolhouse Rock. So, because we may have forgotten or maybe we didn't learn, but a bill has to pass both chambers. A lot of times people in Texas, they see the headlines that the Texas passed a bill, or say the House passed a bill, or the Senate passed a bill. It's so confusing because now people really think that this is going to be the law. Most of the time they don't pass both chambers, so we don't end up with a law, but we end up with a lot of people, having hysterics about something that's never going, it gets really politically heated, something that just doesn't even have a chance to pass, specifically on the House side mostly. So it does have to pass both chambers, just like in DC. So tracking a bill, this is a tool that you can use. So if you have a pen or you want to write it in your phone, early in the legislative session, or even as soon as they start filing bills, which will be in October for the people who are already in office, if your legislator is already an incumbent and he's coming back again, he's already able to file bills as early as October. But a new person elected in November is going to have to wait until mid-January to file his first bills or her first bill. So, and you will want to track bills that you're interested in, and you can make a list of ones you support, or you can categorize them by, like, these are bills that affect real estate, these are bills that affect oil and gas, and these are bills that are pro-family, or these are the bills on the trans stuff or whatever. So go to My Texas Legislature online. You could Google that, or the address for it is https://capital.texas.gov/myTLO. And then you'll, capital, like with the O in the before the L. I just Google myTLO on Google and I find the website. You'll create yourself an account there, create a login for yourself, and you'll be able to track the bills every session. You'll go back to other sessions to see what your bill list was, and you can see how it ended up. I can go back for several years. I've been tracking legislation in Texas for 8 years. I can look at those years prior and see what I supported, what I didn't support, and what happened. Why didn't they pass? And where did they fail? Did it fail in calendars? And who specifically caused that? You can see who supported it. You can see who voted for it when it was on the floor. You can see who was the chairman of the committee that it didn't get out of. So you'll want to look at those things when there's an issue that's important to you, and you look at the history of what are the bills that, I know during the Dan Crenshaw campaign, a lot of stuff came up about flooding. So I used the MyTLO website so I could research what bills. There was all this, oh, he hasn't supported flooding. So I asked ChatGPT, well, what legislation did Steve Cho support, during his time in the Texas legislature that actually did, create support projects to mitigate flooding in Montgomery County area and also Harris County. And so I was able to find that and counter, with evidence, by using this website. So it's a good tool. So I encourage you to create an account on My Texas Legislature Online where you can track bills. And you'll also want to make those lists. And in there, you can create alerts. Very important during the lighting's fine for me. Very important to, during the session, any bill you support, to know when it's going to have a hearing. And that's what those alerts are for. I like to put an alert when it gets into a committee, been assigned to a committee, and then when it has a hearing date. Then I can, now sometimes you don't have very much time to get to the Capitol, but it's really important to me I get to the Capitol if I can. Nowadays I take care of my parents who have dementia, so it's getting a little harder to get to the Capitol, but it's really important I'll hire babysitters. So, congratulations, Austin. Congratulations. Yes. So a bill has a better chance. So at this point in the, we're about to have a legislative session starting next January. This is the time where you want to talk to legislators about bills. Even before now is good because they're having committee hearings. There might be like a commission or some big government organization that it could be sunsetted. Well, the Sunset Committee is meeting now. You could talk to you and say, hey, this is a big waste of money. So the Texas, I can't think of the name of it now, but there's a big Texas Child Mental Health Care Consortium. What a major waste of taxpayer money this is. And it's also, they're very much violating parental rights in the way they've done training. I've found training of them where they're saying hide things from the parents. So like transing the kids. So they should have been shut down immediately when that was exposed a few years ago. But instead they doubled down, and I think they're getting like $200 million now of taxpayer funding. If you take what they're putting in and divide it by the number of students or the number of interactions per student, it's over $4,000 for mental health counseling, who's getting it. And then per interaction, it's over $2,000. I can take a kid, one of my kids, to the counselor for $200. Average counseling session, $50 to $250 in Texas. So why are we wasting this money? Because they said access. Well, I'd rather, talk about vouchers. I'd rather you gave them a voucher to go to a professional who their parent chooses, who's not going to hide things, that they trust and maybe shares their value system, because really it works best whenever your therapist shares your values and wants to reflect those back to you. But we're paying a lot of money. So that's an example of something I'd like to see sunset. So now would be a good time to talk about anything you want to see sunset, because it's a waste of taxpayer money or it's violating us in some way with our rights. But once the bill is, you want to have that bill, when you're talking about filing bills right now, like I have a whole bunch of bills I want to see filed this session. I've already given them to people on the House side. I've got to work on getting it on the Senate side next, because you want the bill filed in the House and the Senate. That way it has a better chance, because it has to pass both. Now, they're not the same bill. So what will happen? They will go into a committee, a conference committee, and they will, reconcile those two, and then they'll be, once again, be voted on both sides. But you want that to get support on both sides of the House and on the Senate. So once it's filed, the author and advocates ask other lawmakers to sign on to the bill. So that's what you can do, because they actually are very busy. If you've ever been to their office, I mean, a lot of times we're complaining about them, but I've sat in their offices and worked on my stuff, and they're busy. They're swamped all day, and they're doing a lot of legwork. So the more you can do, and the more people you can bring to make those, walk down the hall and say, well, Representative Cunningham has filed my bill, and can he count on you to sign on to it? Or go over to the Senate side and can we count on you and to file this on the Senate side? The number of sponsors as well indicates support for the bill and increases the likelihood that it gets a hearing, and it helps ensure its passage in the other chamber. Another thing to note, some of the lower the number of the bill, the earlier it's filed, it has a better chance of passing. So that's why the bills that are priority for the governor or the priority for lieutenant governor have low numbers and are more likely to pass. All the budget bills, of course, are going to pass, and they have a low number like SB 1, SB 2. Bipartisan support increases your chance of passage. More than 10,000 bills are filed, about 1,000 will pass. So now sometimes it's hard to get bipartisan support, but I would try. If you have the time and the people, try. I mean, it's a little bit potential to have conflict, but sometimes you'll find that the Democrat members, they haven't heard these arguments before, like the detransitioners. We got a couple. We didn't get very many, but we got a couple in the past sessions by telling stories. Before you go visit offices, just some helpful information. Print an office directory, so you can print that online. It also, those can find it at mytlo.com, or there's a website at the Capitol where you can print the directory. That'll help you know where you're going. And then print the building maps. And I like to make a plan for my team. If I know I have 10 people, we can divide up into groups of 2, and we will just, we'll have a plan so we can hit more offices in the day. If you use a walker or wheelchair, or you're pushing a stroller or bringing anything with wheels, you'll want to access on the north side of the Capitol where there's a ramp. Plan your parking. Park at the Capitol Visitor Center, but on busy days, like when the realtors are there or the teachers are there, there's a Buffalo, is it Buffalo Museum? No, the Bullock State History Museum. It's down the street, but that's where I always park when it's really busy. So Bullock, there's the Bullock Museum, State History Museum. It has a lot of parking, and on the really busy days, I've always been able to get parking over there. So just good to know, because sometimes you get there and the visitor parking is completely full. You can't get in there. So book appointments ahead if you can. That way they know what you're coming to talk about, and you can send materials ahead, and be sure to divide and conquer with your group. The MyTLO website, you can see if the bill has sponsors, how many sponsors, who the sponsors are, and you can also see if it has an identical bill or a similar bill in the other chamber. And they just call it a companion. They call it a what? A companion bill. And when they have a bill that's just like it in the other chamber, it is called a companion bill. So when you set up your alerts in MyTLO, you're going to want to set up alerts. So these are my suggested alerts. So mainly for committee hearing, it's what I like to know. And then I like to know if it's sent, when it's sent to calendars. So it'll eventually be sent to the governor. These are the alerts you can get. Any category, which means everything, you'll get everything. Referred to a committee, that's a good one to do so you know what committee it's going to. When the committee hearing is, committee report filed, sent to Senate or House calendars, sent to the governor, or signed by the governor. And by the way, not every bill that becomes a law in Texas has to be signed by the governor. The actually signing the bill is almost like those are like just for photo ops, because it's going to become a law anyway, as long as he doesn't veto it or send it back to the House or the Senate for correction. Like last session, there was a bill that was completely unconstitutional, he got it, and he said he sent it back, and he had a press release about why it was unconstitutional. So that can happen. But set up those alerts in there because it'll help you know, like give you some notice that it's coming. I want to get to the Capitol, or I want to organize phone calls. If you can't get to the Capitol, organize all your friends to call and all your contacts. Special sessions. The governor can call special sessions to get the legislature to focus on his priority legislation. So the key is making your priority his priority. How do we do that? More calls. I mean, you won't believe it, but during the time that we were trying to get the bill passed by to to ban pediatric gender, yeah, pediatric gender modification procedures in Texas, we were trying to ban those procedures here. During that time, we had in one day 60,000 phone calls go to the governor's office. Yet one of the legislators, and this was a more conservative legislator locally, told me, if you want to get a bill passed, you need to get more people to come, and you need to get, yeah, you need to get more phone calls. And I was thinking, how many? How many? I think it's just creating the crescendo of pressure, enough pressure, so that it is a political issue that it's either it's going to hurt campaigns if they don't do it. When that issue, when the pediatric gender modification procedure, and we could have had better legislation, but they no longer had the choice to leave it alone anymore. It was costing elections. It cost Stephanie Click over $1 million. So she had an opponent. It cost $1 million. Dade Phelan had to contribute to her campaign. It cost so much money. It was because of that one bill. It died. She had several bills to end it in her committee. I think there were like 5. One left her committee and died in calendars. 4 others died in her committee. She could not overcome that. So she was able to keep her seat, but it was a lot of money. Then the next session, she was challenged again, and she lost that seat. So if you can make that your issue, your bill, create so much pressure around it, so political that people start having to really fight for their seat, then you can get it to pass. Unfortunately, that it's not just, oh, this makes sense, we should do that. Why? Because you're not contributing $1 million per legislator to their campaign. So you have to work hard to get that pressure up on them. And ways I've done it: hired a billboard truck to circle the Capitol, have it circling all day, so that legislators see it when they leave to go to lunch, when they're crossing the street. A billboard truck. So they have, it's digital and it's flashing messages, has the potential to make the news. And so they see that, have your rally out there with speakers, has the potential again to get interviews in the news, because you do have to create press. This is called earned press that you get. You don't have to pay for. You have to pay for ads, but you don't have to pay for interviews. So send out, work with a group and send out a press release of your own. Let them know we're having a rally. This is what for. This is what bills we support. These are the bills we oppose. And this is why we are, why this is important to Texans. So, and you can hold a press conference if you get a sponsor. You can hold it right there in the press conference room in the Capitol, and supporters can come and stand, like legislative supporters can come and stand with you. That's effective, and media shows up. But another important place to listen to, like early in the legislative session in the House, bills are not actually being heard. They don't actually vote on anything and have like their committee hearings until like March. They have a lot of days where they're busy doing a whole lot of stuff, but it's not voting on the bills. It's not really having committee hearings. So what you can do during that time, oops, I forgot what I was going to say about that. Maybe it'll come back to me.
State legislators that there are that much our bills, and that gives us enough time for us to get out and talk to people. that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. So there's time in the beginning of session to try to get that support for the bill before they actually start having their hearings. So So you'll want to contact all the committee members that are going to hear your bill. So if it's a public health committee, you're going to contact every member of the public health committee. If it's, depending on where that bill is being heard, that's who you want to contact, every member, especially those that you think are more likely to vote for it. So, but don't leave anybody off, just because of partisan politics. I wouldn't, let them know, let them know your argument because you're going to keep making it. Um, you can also support or oppose without testifying. So if you do not want to, if you're not a public speaker, you don't feel comfortable getting up in front of other people who you don't know or having a film of you, potentially going on the internet speaking, you can just submit written notice. You just submit enough copies for each committee member to get their own copy. You'll get that to the committee secretary when you go in. On the House side right now, you can submit your written testimony online. You cannot do that on the Senate side. It's old fashioned. You've got to call every committee member or email every committee member separately. But the House actually is a little more into the current age. There is a request to change that on the Senate side and bring them up to the current century, but so far they're not. Yeah. But there's a House link for written testimony. Every day you can check the House link for written testimony. Um, it's it's comments.house.texas.gov/home. And I'll send all these links to Laura so that she can share with you. But you can pull those up anytime during session, and all kinds of bills will be there that you're allowed to still submit public comment on. So you may see something that is interesting to you that you weren't even aware was having a hearing, that you can go ahead and say, yes, I support this bill. It's just as simple as that. You don't have to type a big sophisticated paragraph or go to Chat GPT and have them type paragraphs for you. Just, yes, I support this bill, and and this is where I live. Will all be in there. So let's see. Just for information's sake, if you're going to email the members of the Senate, the format is first name dot last name at senate.texas.gov. And if you're going to email a member of the House, the format is first name dot last name at house.texas.gov. Registering to testify, all of this has to be done at the Capitol on their Wi-Fi. When you can, from your phone on their Wi-Fi, Capitol Wi-Fi, or at the kiosk where you can sign in within the Capitol itself. And that's over in the extension side. So on the day of the hearing, you register to testify, and usually everybody gets there very early to testify, and you may sit around all day, even up until midnight or maybe till the next day waiting to testify, especially on popular pieces of legislation. And they seem to do, public health is big on having the really controversial or going to have the most people show up bills all in the same day, and having they'll have the abortion bills, and they'll take up the whole day. So then the bills having to do with stopping insurance, coverage for trans surgeries or whatever, that'll be, right about midnight. We finally, have it. You can have expert testimony, and they're out of time. So just because you get there early doesn't mean that they're going to. You don't know what time you actually have no idea what time they're going to talk about your bill. So you're just there waiting. So. And they may take a break and have to go vote on the House floor, and then come back, or they have other committee, because the committee members are members of other committees too. So they'll go to other committee things and then come back. So you just don't know. I've been there at 7 a.m. and waited till the next day and didn't get a chance to testify, but that's where the written testimony comes in. Sometimes you still have to register with a physical card, like in the old days, like if the technology's down. And just for your information, all your public testimony and your positions are available for public record. So don't do anything that you don't want anyone to know about. Don't write anything that you don't want anyone to know about. Don't say anything that you don't want anyone to hear you say. So keep it classy, keep it professional. And at this point, I would like to mention how you dress when you go to the Capitol. Dress, you can wear, like sometimes we wear t-shirts and jeans and our t-shirts are all the same, and that's fine as long as it's modest. My main thing is modest. If you can dress a little more professional, even better, because you should be serious. You should be serious and wanting to make an impression that you're a serious person coming to talk to them about things. So
Cowboy hats. Oh my gosh, do they love cowboy hats?
yeah,
Pull mine out, girl.
you won't be the only one in a cowboy hat for sure.
You know why? Because they know that Democrats
When you go to the offices, sign the guest book and take a picture with the legislator. They love that. They'll post it on their social media. It's a good way just to build a good repertoire with them. It's, look, nobody that's in the legislature, Democrat or Republican alike, thinks that they're a bad guy. Everybody there thinks they're there doing great and wonderful things for their constituents and for the state of Texas and all of its people. No one there believes they're doing the wrong thing. So you go in there, and now I'm not usually for this, but you're trying to get a bill passed. I don't like to kiss butt, but here's what you are going to take a picture, you are going to sign the book, and you are going to be polite when you visit these offices. I know they're not celebrities. Don't treat them. They don't have to treat them like a celebrity. They work for you, but this is documenting your relationship with them, and that helps you with your other people you're working with know, like, hey, we've got credibility, we have relationships. And so it's not showing off, it's you're utilizing your relationships, they are utilizing your relationship with them to show other grassroots, like, look, see, I listen to people that come to my office, I listened to Mark when he came by. So do that. I mean, is your bill going to necessarily pass? Maybe not, but you want to build repertoire with people. Okay, so as angry as we are, we don't go in there to start fights. We go in there to make very well educated and articulate points. Trust me, all you're going to do is make the news if you're ugly. And you don't even have to be ugly. I've made the news without being ugly, with them saying I was ugly. And I was like, yeah. Like, they were like, that lady's crazy. I'm like, what did I do? And who did you have me confused with? Wrap it up? Okay. So I already mentioned, so some things to really amplify your effect: hold a press conference, take out local advertising in their district to get people to support it and contact your legislator. Have a rally at the Capitol. Make sure to call and thank them when something passes, okay? And call and thank those who supported the bill, authored the bill. Publicly post about your support for it, and publicly thank them in social media for supporting the bill, authoring the bill, those kind of things. If the bill didn't pass, thank the author and offer to do the legwork again the next session. And the government belongs to those who show up. So make a plan to show up. Save a couple of your work days, a couple of your vacation days to go to the Capitol during session. So that's it. Any questions?